All right, Elder Math 7 students, good morning and happy Monday to you. So we are starting our fourth unit, and this is one of the most important units we're going to look at this year. This unit is all about solving equations, and it is something that you're going to do for the rest of your mathematical career. You'll be solving equations next year, the year after that, and really for the rest of your math life. So important that you're paying attention and getting this down. So some basic stuff to start off with. An equation must have an equal sign. That's what makes it different from an expression, right? An expression does not have an equal sign, whereas an equation does. And equations can include things like numbers. They can include variables, operation signs. And that's really about it. Numbers, variables, operations, exponents they can include, but we won't really deal with any equations that have exponents. That's going to be more of a like algebra 2 kind of a thing that you get into. So then when you're dealing, let's get an equation or an example of an equation. So some examples of some equations could be like 1/2 plus 7x is equal to 78. That's an equation because it has an equal sign. Boom. Simple as that. A non-example would be something like just looking at 6 times 30 plus x. That's not an equation because it does not have an equal sign. The whole basis behind solving equation comes from this little piece right here, that equations can be split into two equal parts at the equal sign. So that equal sign is like considered our middle, even though it might not always be in the middle of the equation. So, for example, if I take my equation right here, I can split that in half right at the equal sign where I did in orange. So the difference between equations and expressions, besides the fact that they one has equal signs and one doesn't, has to do with what you do with them. An equation has to be solved. Whereas when you're looking at expressions, you're not solving, you're simplifying. Simplify. Simplifying. So that's the big difference. When you're reading the directions, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to if A, it's an equation or an expression, and B, if the directions are asking you to solve versus simplify. This question right here in bold, this is something that needs to be starred, highlight, double starred, whatever you want to do. This is a question I'm going to ask you probably about 14 million times this year, and that is the goal of equation solving. And so, no, it's not to find the answer. I mean, it is to find the answer, but that's not what I'm looking for. The goal of every math question is to technically find the answer. But so specifically when we're talking about equations, the goal of equation solving is to isolate the variable. So isolate meaning to get by itself. We're trying to get the variable alone. We want to get the variable alone, right? Isolate means to be by yourself, to get alone. And we do this by using what are called inverse operations. Inverse operations being things like, if I'm talking about addition, the inverse operation of addition would be subtraction. If I'm talking about division, the inverse operation of division would be multiplication. Those opposite operations there. Okay, so the really, really important thing here that you want to take away is that equations can be split into two equal parts at the equal sign. And the goal of equation solving is to isolate the variable, and we do that by using inverse operations. Isolate the variable using inverse operations. Super important.